on YouTube. I was thinking of getting a new action cam, new helmet cam. I've got the Drift HD Ghost at the moment, been using it for many years, been very happy with it, but maybe it's time to retire that to a second camera use or a backup camera and get something a little bit more updated, a little different. So what am I considering? Well, I'm thinking I like the Drift. I like the format that they have that makes it so user-friendly to put on a helmet and do some motorcycling, to do this. You know, the rotatable lens and just the convenience of the mounting system and, you know, the discreet nature of it. Yeah, so I like Drift. And I also like Sony. However, Sony is more expensive. Drift is less. Sony has more features. Optical image stabilization, this type of thing. But I'm not sure whether the features that it has over the Drift are enough to warrant spending the increased dollars and to overcome my objections to the Sony, some of which are, I don't know, the looks of it, the convenience of the mounting system, the lack of the rotating lens. So I'm kind of leaning towards Drift, and I'm thinking either the Drift Stealth or the HD Ghost. I like the size of the Stealth. Man, it's small. But it has less features, less resolutions you can use. You know, it doesn't have 60 frames a second at 1080p, for instance. But then again, I'm not sure that I would really use that. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it's been my impression that 60 frames a second or 120, it's mainly not to increase image quality when you're moving fast, but to give you the option for a quality slow motion if you want to throw a slow-mo clip in your video. And I don't get into that, so. And then I'm also thinking, well, you know, good one, don't look before you cross. I'm also thinking, you know, I hear a lot of people say, well, you know, it gives you a better image when you're zipping through trails and stuff. But when I look at their footage, I'm not sure, you know, whether that's true. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I always thought that YouTube didn't support 60 frames per second. And therefore the only use you can make of it is for slow-mo clips. Anyway, a lot of you people know a lot more about this than I do, so fill me in the comments on that if you would, please. So I'm, like I say, leaning to the Drift. The Drift 4K has more options than the Drift Stealth. And I think I looked this up, that its image resolution is larger, and I'm interpreting that as meaning the sensor or whatever you call it that captures the video in either a lower quality or better quality. I gather that sensor is larger and more advanced in the more expensive 4K Drift compared to the Stealth. Again, if someone knows, fill me in. I'll do a lot more research on this before I make a decision, but it's kind of my initial thoughts. The other thing was to do with all that is the viewing angle. The viewing angle, maximum angle on the 4K and the Stealth is 140 degrees, whereas on this, the HD Ghost, it's 170 degrees, and I think on the Sony, it's 170. So I've always used 170. But I've always kind of thought, you know, gee, I wish it were a little bit narrower. Because when you look at the video after, you know, some of the things I might say, hey, look at that, you know, isn't that cool? And in the video you can't see it because it's too wide of an angle. It makes everything so small. So in this video I have set the Drift Ghost, or HD Ghost, to its next step down in angle, which is a big step. It's down to 127 from 170. So the newer drifts max out at 140, and I'm thinking, well, maybe that's just about right. Like maybe that's what would solve my objection to the 170 at times being just a little bit too wide. Anyway, so I thought I'll do this video at 127 and see what that looks like, and if it's kind of semi-acceptable, then maybe the 140, which would be a wider view, would be just right. So we'll see. See what it looks like. The reason I have hardly ever used the 127 on this camera is because when you flip it to a smaller angle, what it does really is it just zooms the camera in, which degrades the image clarity, the sharpness, noticeably. But I assume that that wouldn't be the case on the newer drifts with their 140 angle, smaller than 170, but it wouldn't be done with a zoom. In case you're wondering why I'm not considering a GoPro, I realize the image quality is nice and, you know, for most people anyway, it's dependable, but I cannot stand the format, you know, the shape. I mean, it just doesn't appeal to me at all. It doesn't seem like it's suited to a helmet. And I've heard too many horror stories about the mounting options and all that, as compared to the Drift, which is just so solid and simple. So that's why. Not interested. Anyway, I think that's about all I got, folks. So if you have any comments, if any of you are using any of those new drifts, either the Stealth or the 4K, let me know what you think and what you think about actual advantage of 4K. I mean, you know, I understand it's sharper and all that, but is it really desirable and needed? Does it work out to be an advantage in practical situations? You know, like for instance going off-road and you're on a fairly narrow trail and there's tree branches on either side, and you know how it is sometimes. You're going at some speed and all those branches are pixelating and going fuzzy and that type of thing. Does 4K improve that? I've also heard some cameras will heat up pretty bad when running in 4K. I have a pretty good computer system at home, and when I try to look at 4K videos, I mean, they play fine, you know, play nice and smooth on my system, but I don't know, sometimes I just don't see the advantage, or sometimes it's a little too sharp and it's not comfortable viewing, so I go back to the 1080p view. Again, your comments would be appreciated. What do you people think? So yeah, signing off now. You take it easy, ride safe, and have some fun.